In June 2025, MIT published a very interesting study that could make the statement that AI and the usage of AI is inviting us humans to become lazy, to not use our brains anymore the way that we could actually use them. And this is a very controversial topic that we are going to discuss in today's episode of Who Do You Want to Be? And here with me today, as always, is wonderful Abba. Good morning, Abba. How are you today?
Good morning, and I'm super excited to discuss this and actually peel off the layers of this study a little bit so that we can give some more context to everyone who's listening so that they can better understand news like this that is disseminated.
Absolutely. I think it is very, very important for us to really look into the details of this study because, first of all, the study is quite long. It's quite difficult to read through all of these 206 pages that it has. And of course, there are summaries out there and other ways to read through this study in a shorter and quicker way. But we also want to make sure that everyone really understands the essence and the implications that the usage of AI can have for us, specifically when it comes to learning. And now, because you are our AI expert, Abba, it would be amazing if you could just shed some light on the content of this study, please.
So let's give you a little bit of context of the study. Is for those of you who have not read about it or heard about it, MIT recently conducted a study where they had 54 people from the ages of 18 to 39, all located in the Boston area. And they wanted to study the cognitive impact of using ChatGPT on their brains. They divided these people randomly into 3 different groups. One group was to just use a tool like ChatGPT for the task. The other group was only allowed to use Google search. And the third group was not allowed to use anything at all. And the task they were given was to write an essay, an SAT level essay. So that's the American exams. So they gave them some prompts from that level essay. So SATs, I think, are usually taken before you go to university. So the prompt was of a SAT level essay. And what they had to do is write an essay in 20 minutes. Now, the study was done over 3 sessions in which all of them attended the 3 sessions. And there was an extra session which only 18 people attended. Super summary of the results was that the group that used ChatGPT, their essays were soulless and very superficial and not interesting at all. And the group that did not use Google search or ChatGPT, their thought process behind their essays was the best. The group that was in between, that wasn't allowed to use ChatGPT but was still allowed to use Google, their essay was average. Now, what was also interesting was that at the end of the activity, the amount of retention the students had from the exercise they had done varied. So the students that did use ChatGPT didn't really recollect or remember or understand very much of what they had written, whereas those who had just used their brains had more of a recollection on what they had written and what the thinking was behind what they had written. Now, I will say that in the last round of the study, those who were only using their brains were allowed to use ChatGPT, but because they had already used their brains, their output was still better. So just before we get into analyzing the study a little bit, I just wanted to give you a few limitations of the study that we need to keep in mind before we jump to conclusions about what AI is doing for our brain or not, as represented by a study. The first thing is there were only 54 people in the study. They were only from a particular area, which is Boston area. They were all young adults or university-going individuals between the ages of 18 and 39. Also, the period over which they were assessed is very short. It's only 4 months. Also, this study is not peer-reviewed. So it was just released to share findings. And of course, because it's from MIT, it's a very credible organization, it did get a lot of press. A lot of negative press in terms of what AI is doing to our brains. However, we do want to also remind you that when this kind of news comes out, it's our responsibility to think critically about the news and actually, if it really matters to us, to dig a bit deeper, to really understand what does this mean for me as someone who's using AI and who wants to incorporate AI into their life. So with that context, the one thing that this study focused on measuring, because there are so many aspects of the brain, and of course it didn't measure everything, while it was doing the exercise, they did have a EEG band on, and what they were measuring was neural connectivity in the brain. This is the only thing they were measuring. And maybe Sabine, can you shed some light on what does this mean if they were measuring neural connectivity in relation to the use of AI?
Yes, absolutely. So thank you for the summary, Abha. I think now it's a lot clearer what the study was actually about. And if we keep in mind that essay writing, of course, is a part of learning and development, the overall goal of this activity was basically to measure how much do participants actually learn throughout this activity of writing an essay. So now when we look at how learning actually works in the brain, there is one very important law called Hebb's law, after the scientist who discovered this. And what Hebb's law actually says is that neurons that fire together wire together. What that means is that whenever we want to learn something new, it's all about generating so-called neural pathways in our brain. You can imagine them as little roads, basically, that are constructed in our brain while we are learning something. So imagine that you have a green field right in front of you. There are no paths anywhere. Take this green field as your brain without any content in it, so you haven't learned anything yet. Now, let's take the example of learning a language. Say we want to learn Spanish, but we don't know anything about Spanish just yet. So there's a green field right in front of us. We want to start learning Spanish, and we take the first step onto this green field. So you can see your foot marks on the grass, but they vanish as soon as you take the next step. It's the same thing with learning a new language or basically learning anything, meaning you take a few steps, but you might forget immediately what you just took in. This is what happened to people in the study that used ChatGPT, because they read the information once, but then they forgot about it. So there was not much neuroactivity in their brains. Now, when I am repeating this action and I take these steps over and over again, after some time, you can see that, oh, actually, I'm starting to build a path on my green field. And the more often I walk it, the more clearer this path becomes. Meaning, the more often I fire my neurons together, the deeper my path becomes, the deeper my knowledge becomes, in this case, of the Spanish language. So when I'm using my brain in a higher intensity, which obviously happens when I have to come up with ideas myself, when I have to construct the outline of the essay myself, when I have to think of the content of the essay myself, there's a lot more activity in my brain, meaning I need to fire a lot more neurons than, for example, putting in a prompt into ChatGPT telling me now do all the work for me. I put in the prompt, I sit back and I wait. So in that time, basically nothing happens in my brain because I'm just waiting for ChatGPT to give me the output. Whereas when I have to write the essay myself, my brain is working all the time because I am the one who creates everything based on the prompt that I'm giving my own brain. And this is what is meant with this neuroactivity. This is what the scientists found out in that study, that when I am using ChatGPT, I'm using my brain a lot less, which, if you think about it, is only logical, right? I am using my brain a lot more if there is no external source that I can use. So when it comes to learning, not using ChatGPT or any other AI tool is definitely beneficial for me because it means that I have to use my own brain a lot more.
And also, when it comes to thinking about things critically, it's very easy to rely on the information a tool like ChatGPT gives you when it's analyzing stuff. Like, what do I think about this? And it tells you, these are the 4 things you need to think about. No, take a minute and think about them yourself. I was just telling you, Sabine, how I read this paper. The first thing I did when I wanted to read this paper, because I saw the news and I was like, wait a minute, I use ChatGPT all the time. I use AI all the time. I do not want it to affect my brain. Let me read the study. And the first thing I wanted to do was not actually read the study, but take the study, put it into ChatGPT and get the summary of the study, right? But it forced me, because of the topic of the study, it forced me to actually say, no, Abha, take the time to go through the study yourself, have an idea of what it's saying before you go to ChatGPT to get more information. Because, of course, it's easier because the study, like you said, is 206 pages and it's very detailed and it's very scientific and it's got a lot of language that I don't understand. So what I did is I did consciously stop myself and not go to ChatGPT. I went through the study, I went through the executive summary and the conclusion. There's a beautiful content page of the study, which actually is before the content page, a section of the study, which actually says how to read this paper. And it gives you guidance on which pages to go to and which parts of the paper to go to, depending on what you want to learn. And it really helped me navigate the paper better and have some kind of opinion on the paper before I went to ChatGPT to dig for a few details. So again, this paper, while it has its limitations, while it's not peer reviewed, while the task it had asked the students to do, which is write an essay in 20 minutes, which is pretty hard. And of course, it's very easy to just get ChatGPT to do all the thinking because you're under time pressure. It is also a call for us to reassess and think about how we are choosing to use these tools. I can choose to be lazy and just get ChatGPT or any similar tool to do all the thinking for me. And then everything I receive will be quite superficial and I am not firing enough neurons in my brain to keep my brain working a certain way. I can choose to be like that. But I don't want to be like that. I want to still have brain cells and my neurons working so that I can continue to grow my mind, my brain, the way I think. And again, it comes down to the whole point of this podcast, which is as we're using these tools on a day-to-day basis, who do we want to be? Do we want to be someone who lets AI take over critical thinking, seeking information, seeking the truth, seeking our ability to understand things? Or do we want to work with the tool as a partner to help us do it faster? So the way I read the paper is an example of that. I first read the paper myself. I took the effort to not read all the 206 pages, but go through them. And then I went to ChatGPT to help me find certain parts of the information that I wasn't able to comprehend or understand, but I still had to go back and cross-check the stuff. So I'm really happy they put out this study because I feel like it's important to have this dialogue, although the study is not conclusive or representative of an entire population.
Absolutely. I think what you were just saying is the essence of it all. It's really about how do we understand ourselves, and how we've been saying quite a few times on this podcast as well. It's all about the intention that we're having. So, am I reading something simply for the sake of taking in information? Okay, then it's fine. Then I can as well just get a summary so that I know, okay, what are the key points about? Maybe because I want to have a simple conversation about it. Fair enough. But if I really do have the intention of learning something in depth, learning something in detail, then it would be better to use one's own brain to really keep firing those neurons and to keep repeating to learn the content. Because I remember also about that we had one episode where we were talking about career development and we were talking about the difference of mediocrity and being an expert. And even then, we already agreed that if you really want to become an expert, it means that you have to indulge yourself with the content. You need to really dig, you need to understand what this is all about. And that goes way beyond using ChatGPT or any other AI tool to quickly give you the answers you're looking for. So again, it's really always about the purpose that we are having. So what do we want to achieve with this? Why are we doing this? And also to really weigh, is it worth the effort to read those 206 pages myself? Or is it sufficient for me to just get the summary? Or is the truth somewhere in between, like you were just explaining? We can create our own way of approaching knowledge, different information by, for example, then saying, all right, I'm going to focus on those chapters in that study or in that book that are really relevant to me. And for those chapters that are probably not as relevant right now, it's good enough for me to read the summary. So really consider for yourself, which way do you want to choose? Because in the end, the options are so numerous right now. Just pick whatever really serves the purpose that you're having.
And you know, in this AI first world, the success of us as humans is really the combination of these tools and our human brains. And again, it's the premise of this podcast. How can we combine artificial intelligence with human intelligence to make the most of these wonderful tools that have been given to us to build, create new things and develop new pathways for our life? But how can we do that keeping intact our human intelligence, our brain power, our brain cells? And it is, like you said, Sabine, a choice. It is very easy for us to completely skew towards artificial intelligence. And listen to the word, it is artificial intelligence, which means it is not real. What's real is our own intelligence, what we are able to develop in our mind through firing these neurons again and again and again, and the creativity and the imagination and the depth of knowledge that we can provide and contribute as humans is far more and will exceed any machine, at least in the next 5 to 10 years. And those people who are going to thrive in this world are those people who are able to combine their human intelligence with artificial intelligence, knowing that it's very easy to not use your human intelligence because of what artificial intelligence is putting in front of you on a platter. So take this moment to again think about, in this AI first world, as we are using AI on a daily basis, whether it's for our personal life, whether it's for our work, whether it's for pleasure, anything, we are going to tools like ChatGPT immediately without giving it much thought. This is your call to think about it when you are using these tools, how you're using these tools. Take the time to not switch off your brain. And if you feel you're getting lazy, and your brain subconsciously will tell you, and you know, let's admit, we know when we are doing things lazily, we're taking shortcuts. Take that extra step to be aware of it and stop and revert to using your brain. Also, the benefit of that is the output that you're going to get is going to be far better than if you didn't use your own brain. So who do you want to be? If we want to thrive in an AI first world, let's not forget that we need to continue to use our brains whilst using all these tools to help us use our brains better. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.